All right.
All right. The effects of online learning mentally, physically, and socially. In today's modern age, technology has become a big part of our lives. In recent years, before there have been arguments between traditional schooling versus online education. Online learning is impacting students, so it is important because it'll be a part of our child's lives now. We need to understand the consequences of online learning from very young ages all the way to college students. The effects can be huge and can leave big impacts on a child's development. This is a big part of our future in technology and learning. Our results will be based around our statistics and what we find about how schooling affects a person's grades, mental and physical health, and social life. The implications we have will most likely be how online learning should remain an option but should never be forced. Having forced online classes can cause many different health problems and should not be the type of learning for every single kind of student. Here's a showing of our table of contents real quick, showing off what we have in our demonstration. And then, in a world that is seemingly changing every day, there are many outcomes to be expected, one of which is the effect that online learning is not only its students, but teachers and families as well. Dive into this research that will reveal exactly what this adaptation to learning is doing to everyone and how we can evolve with it. Here's a few statistics that you can read through about online learning and COVID 19 right now. 43% of the students who signed up for online learning had never taken an online class before. 40% of freshmen said that they would not even want to start college in 2020 during the pandemic. And there have been a lot of other problems outside of just schooling. Things like 40% of Americans having to starting to deal with mental or drug related problems since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. On the right side, you can see kind of some of the mental struggles and the different age groups in which they affect. Here's kind of my view on how online learning has been for me. This is my third year going to college. I go to both GRCC and Ferris at the same exact time, so that can be kind of stressful. And so far, it's been my hardest year yet. It wasn't harder for me to learn this way necessarily. It was hard for me to find motivation, pushing myself when no one was there. On top of the fact, I was unable to leave my house for a very long period of time, almost an entire year. I couldn't hang out with barely anybody, very few people. And if I could go anywhere, it was barely anywhere. But now that I'm vaccinated with online schooling in my way, I don't have the time to leave my house. So now I'm stuck here yet again.
Something that we have obviously discovered while delving into this research is that anxiety and depression is obviously a very huge result of online learning for students. Studies have shown that loneliness and stress has a high increased risk of becoming depressed, and online learning just presents a whole new set of problems for students, whether that is because of computer or internet problems, there's added distractions at home, and it's harder to understand the work, and this, coupled with the loneliness that we experience from not seeing friends or other students, can obviously lead to problems like depression. And the depression is directly related to online learning for many students. According to a mental health survey in May of 2020, in California, about 22% of students were receiving mental health services before COVID 19, and now 32% of students who were not receiving any mental health services before now need them. And then over to the right here, we just have a small graph kind of going over the conditions, this trifecta of what is going on here for us. And then on the social aspect of the problems here, school is supposed to be a time for students to interact with their peers, other students, their teachers, and everybody. And it's supposed to be this moment where we can solidify these connections, create friendships, and moving the classroom now to an online setting just tears this social aspect away from us. and it descends students into a pit of isolation and loneliness. While some would say the space of a classroom in person can be overwhelming, many would argue that there are many social benefits that we experience in a person setting like that. And recent studies have actually shown the lack of motivation that these social impediments have caused. According to a study by Allison Ryan, who is a PhD professor in the education of psychology program at the University of Michigan, during a recent study she did of middle school students in more than 50 math and science classes, she found that the students who felt they had friends and teachers who cared about them and were exceedingly more successful in the classroom and were more engaged. And with that aspect taken away, it just leaves students unmotivated, basically. And then speaking for myself too, this is my second year at JRCC. At first, I thought it was kind of nice being online because I didn't have to drive to school every day and I could manage my assignments a lot easier, it seemed. But I've found myself now feeling very overwhelmed at the fact of everything that's on my computer. And not to mention, I feel like I have more assignments due every day. And it's just become very almost depressing now to not get to meet my peers and to talk to my professors, ask questions in person. And I can't just ask a question now and get a response right away by having a conversation. I have to wait potentially days, or I have to wait days to respond to somebody as well, due to now a very busy work schedule, unfortunately. And then these here are just some physical effects of screen time. Obviously, worsening eyesight with the blue lights on our computer screen. It has caused a lot of these symptoms for us, and as well as just pain all over our body from sitting hunched over computers all day long. But we do have some tips here that we can manage with our screen time. That includes no screen before bed, have a 20-second break, just even between 20 minutes of work will improve the health a lot. Physical activities after screen time, and especially no screen time during meals and other times to be social. And then obviously why online school is hurting students here. We are now presenting students with mandatory computer time up to 12 hours per day. And college and primary schools not only have classes online, but then the assignments are done and turned in online. So now you just have no break for students to be away from the computers. And we have all ages just sitting, straining their eyes, making them very tired, unmotivated. And this obviously, as we mentioned before, leads to depression, anxiety, and the workload has even been higher than it would be in person, which just obviously increases to a breaking point for many people. And this on top of many things like not having an appropriate workplace, and is just added up for many students and teachers alike as well.
Unfortunately, there's not many studies shown between the long-term effects of screen time and eyes. But what is known is that our eyes are the most fragile part of our bodies. Their muscle and like all muscles become fatigued and dry when not taken care of. Spending too much time on screen can cause our eyes to stare without thinking, which then begins to dry after not being able to think as much as it needs. One major sign that our eyes are tired and not and beginning to strain is the form of a rather alarming headaches, such as migraines, clusters, and tensions. Usually, eye straining begins after 2 hours of use of technology. Doctors call it the tech neck, parents call it the tech hunchback. While students are spending more time online for classes and assignments, they are also beginning to gather bad postures. Heads are tilted, arms are forward, and focused totally on the screen. This causes tension in the muscles, tendons, and ligament. Students of all ages are experiencing more pain as they spend more time in these positions for classes and assignments. But bad posture can also have a long-term health effect. other than back and neck pain. These positions, if stayed in too long, can actually cause change in the spinal cord shape and create chronic pain and an imbalance within the body. Bad posture can also elevate heart disease chances in the students. So according to some psychologists, just because you watch or use the internet does not mean that you have an addiction. It becomes an addiction when when it starts to interfere with your life. Internet addiction is actually for current research been divided into 5 different subcategories, known as net compulsion, cyber online relationships, compulsive information seeking, and computer or gaming addiction. People who have anxiety or depression often causes them to turn towards internet to fill in the void. Yeah. Okay. Many younger people that already have social problems or have begun to develop social problems, such as younger people that may be migrants or homeless, may find it difficult to learn or make social connections with the lack of wireless communications. Many children in this category may be overlooked by government support due to circumstances they have been put in. There has also been an increase in inequality, exclusion, discrimination, and global unemployment throughout the entire pandemic. The mental effects that online learning has had is a plague that has stretched upon all groups. Not only do students experience this kind of stress, but professors, teachers, and parents alike all understand the problems of online learning. There have been a lot of positives and a lot of negative feedback, especially in the beginning of the pandemic. Social isolation is a major issue that is reported on, as well as increased stress and anxiety that was mentioned earlier. There is even issues with visual learning fatigue. For every problem, there is a solution to be found, and luckily there has been a lot of solutions to everything that was listed earlier. As our world begins to open up once more, these issues may begin to disappear, but in the meantime, we must learn to cope and understand the added stress that online learning environment has had on all people alike.
So social isolation, while the main purpose of school is education, many people use it as an outlet for their social needs. School is the beginning steps for children to make friends and experience lasting memories with people. But where are we left without this interaction? Numerous studies have proved that social isolation can cause higher rates of mental health and depression issues. It is also proven that in-person interactions can reduce the chances of anxiety. With this aspect of education taken away, many people have reported raising rates of all these problems. It is no secret that COVID-19 has wreaked much havoc in everyone's lives, but with the right steps, there's an end in sight. And here we have just a chart of the mental health aspects. There's many different categories, and as you can see, like academics is increased by a lot from 2019 national average, especially because of this pandemic. So increased stress. While many have reported that it's been rather nice to have extra time by not going to school, most others say that online learning only brings added stress. The fact that we are in the midst of a pandemic is already stressful as it is. It was even reported that people who spent more than 10 days in quarantine showed signs of post-traumatic stress. Reports have also stated that students find the online learning experience more stressful than before because they are more likely to forget assignments since they are not in the classroom to remind themselves. Overall, this new environment has added a level of stress that many aren't equipped to handle, and many students out there do not possess the proper materials at home in order to perform their tasks. It creates an unfair learning experience for everyone, especially those who do not typically choose online learning. And here are some tactics to help deal with the stress. So mainly like just promoting, like realizing that there's a problem, and that's a huge step. And then just breaks with physical or breaks with online activities, like during in between classes, especially during like homework. Just take breaks. Just get your eyes off screens, relax, listen to music. The directed wellness campaigns. There's a lot of mental health campaigns out there. Just to read into those and learn more about them will really help you live a healthier life. And podcast learning, even like videos, if you're able to, you can walk and listen to it just to keep your eyes off that screen and to keep you from leaning over your desk or sitting down for long periods of time. With that, exercise, meditation, and yoga are huge and will help a lot with your physical health and mental health as well. Just in between classes or homework, even anytime you can. And then, like supportive online communities, just staying connected with people will really help with this isolation that we have. And so, in conclusion, it is no secret that COVID has had many impacts on our daily lives. From the way we go out to eat to the conversations we have with our friends and families. It is still hard to believe that over a year ago, the pandemic first hit us hard here in America. Although the challenges have been great, the perseverance has been better. One of the biggest impacts that has affected many people is the situation with online learning. Moving students to an online classroom experience has been challenging in many ways, mentally, physically, and socially. Even today, we are still working out the finer details of it all, hoping that we can soon return to a scene of normalcy. But that feels very far away now. The best we can do is move forward with grace and hope for the future and everything along the way. Online learning has created much controversy in the past, but now that it has become a mandatory part of teachers and students' lives, we must learn to cope with it. And then here's our citations, our bibliography.